Greetings everyone and welcome back to Caddick Reviews. Boy oh boy, reboots. Are they becoming just a regular thing that entertainment does now? Everything is new again, everything old is no longer dead, everything comes back. And now we might have a culprit for all of it. Netflix. Netflix has been the home of so many reboots. Voltron, legendary Defender being the most noted of which, and the one that we've reviewed, Inspector Gadget among others. I mean, the amount of reviews of reboots is starting to get insane. Why do I bring this up? Because of our subject matter today. She-Ra and the Princess of Power. Now, back in the 80s, as a boy of the 80s, of course, I watched He-Man when it was part of the USA Network running reruns, and its more contemporary 1996 reboot that only lasted a season or two. But I have less inferiority with its cousin show, She-Ra, Princess of Power, that was quickly made to bounce off of He-Man's success back in the 80s. That's essentially all of the show really was female He-Man, with a few changes, but by and large it followed the formula almost verbatim. Now, nearly 20 years after the fact of the original Princess of Power, DreamWorks Animation has decided that She-Ra should be the next thing rebooted on our TV screens. Is it good? Well, define good. If you mean acceptable to watch for 13 episodes with a bunch of potential, then yes, you've come to the right review. Potential would be the word that I would most use to describe this new Princess of Power, but She-Ra's not alone in this one, which is the biggest negative towards the show. Not that the characters are bad or anything. In fact, they're written decently well. From Glimmer and her willingness to do anything, a go-getter, but largely get yourself into trouble, to the many other princesses like Entrapta, who is, well, on the evil side, but not really evil, to Perfuma, who is pretty much if Starfire and Fluttershy had a lesbian love child to other characters like Frost, who is pretty much Tall from Avatar, only she's 10. All the characters do well, but not as well as what I would consider our two main leads. Adora, the aforementioned She-Ra and the villainous Kedra, who grew up together under the watchful eye and care of the evil Shadow Weaver. But once discovering the sword of protection, in typical we gotta rush her to good guy status, Adora turns turncoat and works for the Princess Rebellion. But taking a page from Avatar, she ain't the first one. She's the 7th. Well. Sounds like we have this show's first big problem. It has a long mythos pre-established that we're probably not going to see for another 4 or 5 seasons. Which means, why are we wasting time bringing it up? Especially when the time we bring it up is in episode 11 of a 13er. Yes, it's the strongest episode of the season, highlighting Adora and Kedra's relationship and growth under the guise of the Shadow Weaver, and how, despite how they're growing apart due to their dual duties and destinies, that somehow their friendship is hanging by a thread, only to be released because we need new lead villain here. When the real lead villain, the evil redo of Hodak, is still holding it down, but is evil, sniding, not really doing much, but being a presence and truly a threat that keeps his others in line, is an interesting redo to the comical, almost over-the-topness of the original. It's a good refresh, but not a great refresh. Kedra's really the star on the villain side naturally because of her attachment to Adora, but Adora is the star and the most well-developed and well-liked character of all this ragtag group. She's strong-willed, determined, but has a problem with holding herself way too credible for all the mistakes she makes, which is logical and surprisingly human for a character who can transform into an 8-foot tall Amazon that is nigh unstoppable when the plot wants her to be. But much like Adora's frail psyche, She-Ra, as an action character in this version, is just as fragile. It's really dependent on Adora's state of mind before she transforms. She's focused and determined and locked on her goal. She-Ra is almost omnipotent and godlike, but if she's distracted, depressed, worried, or things go awry that she doesn't know the answer to, She-Ra can be blown over by a swift gust of wind and de-transformed like a Power Ranger. But at least she doesn't have this cowardly obtuse thing like Serena from Sailor Moon. at least they're showing she's vulnerable, which shows when the good guys do win, it pays off. Yes, with the old power of friendship motif, but hey, come on, you've come to this channel that focuses on a show about friendship. So who am I to discount? But you see, that's the biggest problem with Princesses of Power. A lot of the first season is introducing the titular princesses throughout the first 8 episodes, with a few stabs to Adora and Catra's growing position in both of their stakes, of course. As Catra quickly makes a play to become one of, if not the strongest villain in the villain faction, while Adora gets more accustomed to being part of the good guys in Bright Moon and meeting the other princesses. Which the other princesses have interesting personalities, and I'd be wrong if I didn't mention the 2 boy characters in this show, Bo and Seok. Seok is essentially your comic relief playboy, constantly wanting the love and attention of the Princess of Marlista. But Marlista's princesses ain't having it. And of course there's always Bo. Bo is essentially, the titular boy by the side, the comic relief, the best friend character in the small little Bright Moon ragtag. He's always talking about his best friend squad and his love of technology and shooting arrows. But he's the calming voice of reason, willing to talk anybody up and encourage them. And he's also a pretty good fighter to boot, so Bo I actually kind of like, but not Team Avatar, this ain't. Avatar, this ain't. Even though it's trying to steal a lot of ideas from it, but it ain't. And even He-Man, it ain't. Even the original She-Ra, it ain't. Especially given its animation style. And yes, the animation has been largely talked about with its bright colors, but more flat nature. And yes, I have to down it for its flat nature. The female characters don't look like female characters. And they don't even look like males. They look like boobsless Barbie dolls. Gender indiscriminate. It way looks like this is intended. But it gives off a negative intention. In fact, all the princesses act more like boys than actual girls, showing very little feminine traits, sans Perfuma, of course, who acts the most girly out of the group, but largely they all act like super strong, super capable tomboys. They're not allowed to be girls in this show, and it really hurts. The character of She-Ra was originally introduced as a character of female equality and empowerment, not gender middleness, as to try not to offend anybody, which this show technically from a LGBT feminist and all that bullcrap standpoint doesn't offend anybody. What offends me is the lack of females being females. And we become so scared and so petrified by the ability to offend feminists or anybody on any kind of gender trait that we have just universally decided to make our characters, no matter what gender they may look, have no gender at all. Because She-Ra is the greatest example of this. And it hurts the show's storytelling, presentation, and attachment to character. Even though their personalities and animations are super expressive and the transformation sequences and use of powers are impressive, you wouldn't know these characters are girls if you didn't constantly throw them in constant characters of bright colors and talk about nail polish and perfume. If you didn't do that via the writing, you wouldn't even know these characters are chicks. You would think it's essentially a group of metrosexual guys running around. And it really hurts this show. But what also hurts this show is a lack of a standout identity. 1 minute, it's trying to be Avatar. The next minute, it's trying to be Sailor Moon. The next minute, it's essentially Friendship is Magic, especially at the end fight at the end of episode 13. If Friendship is Magic fans didn't notice the oddly very similar looking Friendship Rainbow final attack, then God, you haven't been paying attention. Yes, episodes like Princess Prom, and the aforementioned final episode are great episodes. There are a few great ones in there. And even the starting episode is a well enough start. But this show suffers from not having too much information. It's having too much information to come, not enough information to give at the start. Sure, there's building for the future, and then there's foundation. This series lacks a very shaky foundation at best. Due to the lack of information on the princesses themselves. So, seeing that the first season of the series spends too much time focused on the Adora-Catcher relationship to give them anything deeper than their basic character traits. In fact, we know more about the Hordak, and their background more than we do the actual good guy kingdoms. And though it applies, we're alluded to greater history at times, but we're not given the full deets, which doesn't allow us to fully immerse into the world, which means the world building comes off as half-baked. And ultimately, that's what this first season shows. A half-bakedness. I'm not quite there yet. There's a potential for a great show here, despite its non-gender descript design, and it's tried too hard not to offend anybody aesthetic. Through its character and impression and its story, there is potential for greatness here despite that. But unless season 2 quickly course corrects and gives each of the side princesses, other than Glimmer, seeing that she's the most on screen and the most developed, sans Adora here and Catra, then this elements of harmony but not will quickly find themselves in the Netflix canceled bin. But for now, I would hope that there is power in this princess. I just hope she can find an updated battery before long. That's why I'm giving She-Ra, the Princess of Power, a positive, optimistic 6 out of 10. It's a watchable show with a few great episodes and a great few plot threads, but it lacks the cohesion to really be strong in its own self-effacing identity. Hopefully in season 2, it will find it. So tell me down in the comment section below if you agree, disagree, agree about it, if you watched the show or a few episodes of it. And until next time, I'm Nirvana Sparkle. Find peace in your own Nirvana. I'll see you next time.